Hey team, welcome to Cycle 2, Week 1 of the Donnelly's Fundamentals, Donnelly's Way. This week we're talking about delivering legendary service. I was recently told a story by a close friend of mine. He visited his relatives in Portland over Thanksgiving, and before he could get there, he learned that everyone in the household had COVID. So they had already flown to Oregon, and they were on their way to the relative's house. And while they were on the way, they were given the news that everyone in the house had COVID. So they had to turn around and go back to the airport. So they get back to the airport. It's Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and they go to the counter and they're like, "Look, we're supposed to fly out on Sunday. You know, for whatever reason, we have to get a flight back." And people are like, "Look, I'm sorry. There's not a lot of space. There's delays. The typical kind of airport thing." And he told me that he leaned in and he said to the person, "Hey, like, we need to rebook because we're just having this family emergency and it's really important to us." And he didn't say anything else about it. He didn't mention COVID. He didn't do anything like that. And the airline person working the desk, of course, booked them on the next flight. And when they got to the gate, they were getting on the flight, and the flight attendant that was booking them in, checking their tickets, said, "This flight's been delayed, which means that you're going to miss your connection in the next city." And so they're kind of on the plane, and they're like, well, what are we going to do? And the plane took off, and while they were in flight, one of the flight attendants came back with a note, and it was a handwritten note from the captain, and it said, we're supposed to fly into, gate A21, and your flight's leaving from B15. You're probably not going to make it in time. We're now arriving at gate A14. And they were like, they looked at this note, like, how often does this happen that the captain's gonna, go out of his way to try and make sure that you get to your, so that you don't miss your connection, so you can get home. And so they get to the connecting airport, and they're getting off the plane, and the captain is standing at the exit. And he says, "Oh, are you Mr. Curry?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, look, like, when you get off of this jetway, you need to make a left, and then you need to walk through this thing, and then you're going to see the gate, and they're waiting for you." And so him and his wife, they went to the next gate. They get there, and there's no one sitting at the gate. In fact, like, the flight attendants, the gate attendants at the gate, the door is open, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you made it." And she walked them down the jetway. They got on the plane, and everyone is already seated. So everyone had already boarded, and they were all just sitting there waiting, right, for these two passengers to arrive. They got on the plane, had an uneventful flight back. They made it back to Pennsylvania, Wednesday evening, and avoided, being stuck somewhere else over the holiday. And I guess the way that I think about this is that, American Airlines didn't have to do any of that. The pilot didn't have to look ahead and see where the connecting flight was for this one person that said he was having a family emergency. The gate attendants didn't have to leave the doors open for the extra time to allow them to get there. And nobody told them to do any of this stuff. They just kind of did it out of the kindness of their own heart. And so I listened to this story, and I thought it was pretty powerful because one, oftentimes the things that create legendary service, like, they're not procedural, they're not structural, that they're just things that are done out of the caring and the kindness of one person to another. Joe Howenstein Sr. Once told me back in 2002, it costs nothing to be nice. And I've said that repeatedly throughout my career, here at Donnelly's and even in other places that I've worked, that it costs nothing to be nice. And oftentimes it's that caring and that compassion and that being nice that matters to people, and it gives them that lasting experience that they remember for a long time. So I'll leave you with can you remember the last customer service experience that you had that was just completely out of this world? What made it so great? Think about this week when you're out there working with your teammates and working with your customers. Until next week, have a great week.